Hi, welcome back to another video. As you can see by the title, how this nurse kicked off my millionaire journey. Today's video is very unique because this exact formula by hosting travel nurses is what kicked off my millionaire journey. It quickly changed the trajectory for my family's future and then some. Bigger than my wildest dreams, because I started hosting travel nurses, it's completely fulfilled everything that I've ever wanted to accomplish. And now I get to sit on the other side of the fence and help others around me. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Shelby. She's been travel nursing for years on end and traveling from city to city, providing her services from hospital to hospital. In most of my other videos, you hear from a landlord or a host perspective. But today, in this video, I wanted to get you the point of view from a travel nurse perspective. She can break down everything from her wants and needs in a house or an apartment that she may be staying in. And these are key takeaways that we can then apply to our own business. I'm excited to get into it. Here's the full interview. So today is a unique episode or show, what have you, because I'm actually going to be interviewing one of my old tenants. Obviously, you guys know who have been here throughout the entirety of this YouTube channel. Most of the things that I talk about from a travel nurse perspective is all about from a host perspective, meaning I'm not a tenant, I'm not a travel nurse. And so you guys only get one side of the story. Well, today I actually have Shelby here, who has not only been traveling for a while, but she also had the privilege of renting from me as well in one of my places that I have here in this market. So I have a lot of questions for Shelby because I'm not a travel nurse, so I can't answer a lot of these, but I think a lot of the subscribers will really benefit from this particular perspective. So I'm going to let Shelby kind of introduce herself. And just to kind of start off, just one question. Shelby, who are you? And like, how long have you been traveling, and why did you get into it in the first place?
All right. Well, yes, I'm Shelby. So I have been a travel nurse for about 2 years, actually over 2 years now. I've been a nurse for 11 years. So 2 years traveling. I decided to get into it to basically get out of my town. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I kind of regret not doing it sooner. As being a nurse for 11 years, like I could have started a long time ago. But it was a couple things, like just burnt out at the job that I was working at home. And then something that I've always wanted to do, it just felt like a good time for me to just finally get out and go see the world. And it's just been like awesome flexibility. So yeah, it was a great decision.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So before we even kind of dive deeper into this whole chat interview style video, I have some stats for you, Shelby. So I talk about money a lot on here. I mean, heck, every title of every video pretty much has the word millionaire in it. So I think being transparent from a money perspective is really important. So I have some stats for you. So when you rented from me, you actually paid $6,300, so 6,350 up front, and 500 of that was a security deposit. So, but 5850 total up front was spread across 3 months. So you stayed for 3 months, you stayed, and that was the amount that you paid up front. So that breaks down to $1,950 a month. So what allowed you to pay up front, and like what kind of things were you like, okay, I need to go ahead and pay up front? Because, and let me kind of lay the playing field. So I allowed Shelby to pay in full, and I gave her a little bit of a discount. And so what made you comfortable in paying in full?
So there's a couple things. Like, I had the financial freedom to do that. Not a lot of people do. So that's a lot of money to pay someone up front, especially someone that I don't know and I haven't met. But we had been talking, we had been, discussing things, and you had a listing on Furnished Finders, which did have a review, or maybe a couple, I don't remember, honestly. So I kind of vetted you myself. That's just a process that I do on my end. But it was the negotiation, which is something that as a travel nurse, you do constantly in your profession. As a regular nurse working in staff, you don't get negotiation. It's just, hey, you're going to come in, you're going to make this, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Like, that's it. But in my world and travel world, like, everything's a negotiation, and someone that's willing to negotiate with me or like cut me a deal, because people are taking money from us left and right. Like, we've got the agency that is the middleman taking a big chunk of the money that I'm, busting my butt for, basically. So, everybody here wants to make money. The agency, the people I rent from, me. So the fact that you're like willing to kind of work with me a little bit, okay, perfect. Like, this is someone I want to work with or rent from, obviously I'm not trying to like scam you out of money. Just like, I hope you're not trying to scam me out of like my housing. Right? So, it was that just, hey, I have an offer for you. And that is something that piques my interest because it's something that I do all the time. Like, here's the offer I've got you. Perfect. Here's my counter. Like, it's just like a normal process. That was a big part of it. On top of just, okay, I can afford to give you that money. And then 3, it's, I give you this money for rent and I don't have to think about it again. It's done. A lot of other things going on. But the other thing to that is, if I get canceled from my contract. So we discussed that when I rented from you. Hey, here is something that could happen to me. And this is with any travel nursing. You're an at-will employee. So the hospital can decide to let you go at any time. I could start work next week, work 3 days, and they could say, hey, we don't need you anymore. Get out. And there's nothing happens. I don't get notice. And so if you're doing that and you're moving to a whole other city and you've paid 3 months rent, right, up front, that could put me in a really terrible situation. I have a job in the city I just moved in, and I've paid you for this lease that I've also signed, that contractually like puts me in this home for 3 months. However, you worked with me on that. And so that was something that I was like, look, here's something that's on the table that could happen. What do you think about, refunding me my money if I get screwed out of a job, right? So that's something that I was like, okay, perfect. I'm willing to do this if I'm also not going to be put in a really terrible position. I recognize that puts like landlords in really bad positions. But I'm also, you're not out of a job. I am, know. So, I think that was like a big for me. Like, yeah, that's definitely something I'll work with.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you hit on is everybody's trying to make money. Most travel nurses get into traveling in the first place to make more money because they can as travel nurses. And as us as landlords, we get into hosting travel nurses because we see that we can make more money by hosting travel nurses because travel nurses are paid more. We can upcharge a little bit more versus a long-term 12-month tenant who's going to be there for a year. We don't have to furnish the place or anything like that. So our profit margins from a landlord perspective are definitely higher when we're hosting travel nurses. So you were paying $1,950 across 3 months. It averaged out to that. If you would have paid just month by month, I would have charged $2,200, and my monthly expenses were only $1,200. So I would have been profiting $1,000 versus it's kind of mutually beneficial for people to pay up front from a landlord perspective that I'm getting a big lump sum of cash up front. Cash is king in any business. So that's beneficial from a landlord perspective. From a travel nurse perspective and tenant perspective, you're getting a big discount, basically chopping off $300 on a monthly basis, which is $900 across 3 months, which is almost $1,000 that you're saving and keeping in your pocket, which is awesome. And of course, $500 of that upfront cost was a refundable deposit, but I've literally only had one instance where I've kept that, and I've hosted at this point hundreds and hundreds of travel nurses. So that always gets returned back at the end of the stay anyway. But yeah, so I think getting kind of the money thing out of the way, and from a landlord perspective, make sure that you are open to negotiating. And that will also separate you versus other landlords, because there's also landlords in this space that aren't willing to negotiate, and the price is the price. And
Mhm.
That's also why their business may not thrive, because you kind of have to be willing to negotiate as long as it's of best interest on both for both people. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
okay.
some people they don't negotiate maybe like I do, so that might work for them, and that's fine. Working with that landlord, I'm not always trying to negotiate. If I see something I think is fair, or it is what it is. I'm not, I'm not trying to. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna negotiate every single time, but um, I will sometimes, and so that's my personality. And I think though there's some that are just fine with it. So maybe the landlords that don't, they're like, this is the price, this is it. And it works for them. So
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, why kind of getting keep on rolling? Why do you choose a particular city versus another city? And let's say like the pay is the same. Why would you choose a city over another?
okay, so if the pay is the same,
Pay's the same. Yeah, yeah.
so
Because
that
for obvious reasons, every where the money is. But like, let's say the pay is the same. Why would you choose a city over another?
okay, so that also depends on the time of year. So if it's December, starting a contract in December, I would rather not be in Michigan or somewhere up north. That's like a normal thing for travel nurses. They want to go somewhere warm for the winter. So that is like the time of year matters and the location matters. However, that sometimes that's not the case with the pay.
Mm.
You're gonna have higher paying contracts in the winter in cold cities, like always. You just are.
Oh,
No one wants to go there for
I
the
did
winter.
not know that. That is good to know.
Mm. Which is why I ended up in Kansas City for the winter and Denver for the winter.
Okay. Okay.
They were paying well.
Okay.
Um, so besides that, if it's going to be about for me personally, like the city itself. So Denver is a well-known city. Indy is a well-known city. Kansas City, Flint, Michigan is not, right. So if it was warm there, whatever, I don't even know their climate year round, but I have no desire to go there. Or
Mhm.
Idaho, I have no desire to go there.
Mhm.
Whatever. So
Mhm.
it's to me, it's I'm balancing the money versus the experience. There's some people that are in it just for the money, and they will go wherever.
Right.
Um, and
Right.
that's awesome. Like good for them. They're out grinding and just worrying about their money. And there's some people that are in it just for the experience. So for Hawaii example, they
Mhm.
don't pay well. They never have. They don't pay enough for you to like make it make sense.
Mhm.
Their thinking is your reward is your destination. And
Mhm.
there's people that go out there. I just worked with a girl in DC that she's going out there for her next contract.
Mhm.
She's not going to get paid well, but she's going because it's Hawaii and she wants to go. And that's like her prerogative, right? So
Right.
for me, it's a little bit of a balance for both. Like, is Indianapolis on my top places to go? Maybe not, but
Mhm.
I've never been. I've heard about it. There's things to do there, and they were paying well enough, and so I went.
Right. Okay. Would you say that the pay from like what you're actually making, would you say that like, do they change the rates based on different markets? So like in the West Coast California market, like cost of living is going to be a little bit higher. So does your pay typically slide with that scale accordingly, or not really?
So yes and no. Ever since COVID, rates for travel contracts have gone down. Like it's just been a steady decline. So I'm not making like near as much money as I used to. So like I'm out in California, they are paying more than say Indianapolis does or Tennessee.
Sure.
Their cost of living is higher, obviously. Um,
Mhm.
so part of my contract or salary is an hourly rate, and the other part of it is government stipends, which is tax-free money. And that is for housing and it's for what they call meals and incidentals. So
Mhm.
there's two like figures that they give you. Um, so your hourly is going to be a little bit higher in, like, say, California versus Tennessee, but your stipends are also going to be higher because those are based on what the government says is the cost of living for that area. You can
Okay.
look up online. That's what everyone does, to see, like, hey, this is where I'm going. This is what I should be getting, which is what, the government says I should be getting to live here in this place. So there's more money in higher places, like higher paying places, but it's not as good as it used to be. It's kind of all relative, if that
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so that's interesting that you say that because so I've been hosting travel nurses for a couple years now, and I would say it's only gotten busier. Although it sounds like from your perspective, the money has gone down from what you travel nurses are making. But from my host perspective, it's like, because I started with one unit and now I have 30 of them. It's like the demand is just like crazy, and it stayed consistent. And I've never had a vacancy. Like by the grace of God, I've never had a vacancy, and so I just find that interesting that the money's still declining, but also there's still some incentives to be a travel nurse for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How does the actual hospital play a role or factor to where like you choose to go next?
Okay. For me, it's kind of hard. If I don't know anything about that hospital, it doesn't, right? So I didn't know anything about Riley in Indianapolis. I work in pediatrics only, so kind of the pediatric populations is kind of small, and I know a lot of travelers, and I know a lot of people that work in my specialty, and so we all talk to each other. Hey, I was just there. Hey, I was just there, and we can get like a good idea of how it is at the hospital, stuff like that. I didn't know anybody that worked there previously or currently when I was there, so I didn't know anything about it. It doesn't really play a factor if I don't. So, like, for example, in San Diego, Rady Children's, it doesn't have a good reputation in the travel world. So
Okay.
I wouldn't go there.
Gotcha.
Unless they were paying maybe a lot of money, I might go there. They don't pay enough yet to consider that. But they do. They have a bad reputation for how they treat their travelers or how hard they make people work and stuff like that. And you're not paying enough for me to go through that. So that is something I consider, and I wouldn't go to San Diego because
that makes sense. That makes sense. And this may be a yes or no question, but have you ever had a landlord ask you for how much you're making prior to like kind of revealing what their price is, or do you kind of already know that just from scrolling listings?
Never like revealing like how much rent is. Everything's pretty upfront on Furnish Finder.
Yeah.
This place that I'm staying in right now, they are the first people to have asked me for like my contract.
Yeah.
As like a proof. Like I'm not sure. I feel like some landlords have maybe been burned in the past about, hey, I'm a travel nurse, I'm coming, and then they don't end up being a travel nurse.
Yeah.
Just as much as we get burned, like I can see landlords getting burned as well.
For sure.
They're the first ones that's asked me for my contract. I mean, I blacked out because it lists everything on our contracts, like the vacation times we have requested off, the hours of shifts we work. Like I blacked that stuff out because they don't need to know that information. I understand you probably want proof like, hey, I'm coming to this hospital for these dates. And it does say that on that contract. So yeah, I sent it to them, but that was the first time that's ever happened to me. But I have heard of other people asking that.
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't ask for contracts, but what I do ask is at least minimum first month rent and deposit up front because to your point, it works both ways and people potentially getting burned. Landlords can get burned in the fact that like, hey, I'm coming on December 26th and December 25th rolls around and, not only have they not paid a dime, but they've only signed the lease agreement that they may have been sent. but they
Mhm.
haven't paid a dime, meaning they have no grit in the game. If you haven't paid a dollar, you really have no true grit in the game.
Yeah.
And December 25th, the day before rolls around, and they're like, "Oh, just kidding. I'm heading to Denver for an assignment. I'm going there instead." So like now the landlord is left with a vacancy, which it's a
Right.
last minute vacancy, and the landlord still has these monthly bills that they have to pay when they were
Sure.
counting on this nurse. So I learned very early on there's a reason why I charge first month rent and security deposit up front. It's not because we're trying to be scammy, but it's to protect our business at the end of the
You're
day.
not the
So,
only one that's done that. I mean, almost everywhere I've been does that.
mhm,
They ask for the deposit and first
mhm,
month's rent. I mean, especially for on my side, I'm happy to give you my deposit because that means I want that place and it's secured
mhm,
to me now. And,
mhm.
that's a commitment on my end. I can understand how some people that don't pay your deposit right away, they may not be, committed to your place. So that could be something to think about if they're not, willing to go ahead and give you that deposit.
Mhm.
And maybe they're not as interested as you think they are.
Right. Exactly. Yep. That's true. So moving right along. So what would you say, so let me again lay the playing field. So Furnish Finder, I preach on that in numerous videos, is pretty much the number one travel app or website for travel nurses to find housing for sure. Furnishfinder.com. And what would you say as you're scrolling in a new city? Let's say we're going to New York next, and now we got to get on Furnish Finder. So, what are some things that kind of separate, like pop out to you, versus like that? Oh, that place might look decent. That place might be good for me to stay in. What are some things that kind of pop out to you initially?
Okay, so
Is it
yeah,
is it is it photos? Is it how many bathrooms they have? That kind of thing.
yeah. So photos are obviously the way you market your place. So if I'm scrolling and you have like some, 2000s Nokia photos on there, I'm gonna look right past it. If you don't know how to properly like take photos, and they don't have to be staged or anything, or you can't figure them out, the orientation of them, I'm not gonna rent from you. Like, I'm just not going to. Um, that worries me. How are you going to even take my like money on Venmo if you don't know how to upload a photo? So
Mm-hmm.
there's that. As far as the place itself, if I, looked at pictures, it looks good. It's in the area that I want for me. Like I don't do commutes. So I want to be right close to the hospital, which is exactly a factor of me choosing to rent from you because it was 2 minutes from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I kind of non-negotiable about a washer and dryer. For me, I do a lot of laundry, and I'm not going to the coin laundry down the street. It's just too much. I've got too much stuff going on. I'm tired, and I don't want to go do that. I would like to just have it in my home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a number one for me. Do you have a washer and dryer? And number two is parking, because I take my car everywhere with me. I drive, right? It's not necessarily a requirement in each city to drive, but I I need a place to put my car safely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like DC, when I was just there, I had a garage on the back of my house, which is like unheard of in DC. There's no parking. You've been. There's no parking there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Parking, and you're fighting to put your car somewhere, and then you're hoping it doesn't get like dinged every
Mm-hmm.
that you park it there. So that is one for me that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One room is enough for me. It's just me. Um, I even considered looking at studios here in California, just because of the price. I have almost always had two-bedroom houses where I've rented, just because I want to be able to host people, come visit me wherever I'm at, my family, my friends. That's something that they've all done where I've gone. So I've usually had two-bedroom places just to be able to have like people come stay. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a non-negotiable for me, but if I can find something that's like decent and worth the price to me,
Right.
I'll usually do 2 bedrooms, but 1 bedroom is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, obviously, I don't need any more than one bathroom. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I think people have different things. Like there's men that travel, guys that travel. They will sleep on the floor
Yeah.
somewhere.
They don't care.
Do
They don't
not care.
care.
Um, those are the people that are renting rooms from people.
Mhm.
That's not me.
Yeah.
I am not doing that. I like my
Yeah.
privacy. I like my space. I like my quiet time.
Mhm.
But yeah, it just depends. Like it's personal preference. But for me, those are my things.
Yeah.
Washer and dryer is huge because not everyone has one. This place that I'm at right now doesn't have a dishwasher, and that's my first time not having a dishwasher. So that has been an adjustment. But it's
Mhm.
like first world problems, right? Like I can
Mhm.
wash dishes, it's fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that kept me like from getting this place that I'm in now.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the I always like to kind of give from the landlord's perspective as well. One thing that I continue to hear is like parking. And all the places that I host at, they all have attached parking garages, which is like awesome.
It's huge.
Now, in the houses that I host travel nurses in, they also have garages. So
Uh,
like that
that's
is,
yeah.
if anybody, if you have parking, like just have parking, because that will separate you from your competition in the market for sure. Have parking, and then like big ups if you can also have a washer and dryer in the unit. If it's an apartment, if it's in the unit, like that is again just a cherry on top if you have that for sure.
Yeah. That's just,
Dishwasher, maybe not a non-negotiable, nice to have for sure. If it's an apartment complex, maybe a nice to have if there's a pool, maybe a nice to have if there's a 24-hour fitness center that you can go to. Maybe not a non-negotiable, but definitely not definitely a nice to have. So
yeah. I mean, those are just like add-ons, that definitely will make it more attractive to live there.
yeah, yeah. And so once you have the house or the townhouse or the apartment, what would you say are some must-haves from in the unit? So like a coffee maker or spatula. What would you say are some must-haves that even from the bathroom perspective, like what would you say are some must-haves that a host like has to have from like an items perspective?
Yeah, so I think it also depends on what you travel with because some people don't bring anything. I have like a few like kitchen things that I bring, but I'm not traveling with a spatula or like the big spoon or whatever. I'm not traveling with that type of stuff. For me, I travel with this sounds random, but Tupperware. Most places do not have that. It's just a thing I think people don't think about. But if you're cooking, especially for one person, you're gonna have leftovers, and you want to have something to do with that. So I bring my own Tupperware, which is crazy. Um,
Mhm.
but so I bring it, right? Because I know most places don't have it. So if you do have that, that's kind of like a plus. That's for me. I think that's nice.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I don't have maybe toilet paper. So I drove 5 days to get out here to California. And I'm not, I have my whole car full of things that I need to live out here. And I don't have a whole space for a pack of toilet paper, right?
Mhm.
Um, so when I get here at, 8:30 at night, I don't have toilet paper in the house, and that's crap because then I gotta go out and then I gotta go
Mhm.
get some really quickly. This place did have stuff. Most places I've been has had like just kind of a basic like
Mhm.
a couple rolls or something like
Mhm.
that. A roll of paper towels to get you started.
Mhm.
And that's all you need. I don't need you to like stock up on the whole thing for me.
Mhm.
It's just like the basic stuff. You know, maybe a dish sponge, some soap. Um,
Yeah.
I don't care if it's the off-brand dollar store stuff. It's all I need to get started. I'll go get this
Mhm.
stuff, because when you first get to a place, like you are unpacking your whole life and throwing it into a space and then figuring out how that space is going to work for you. And you've still got to live during that time that you're
Mhm.
settling. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think that's just that could just be me. Those are my opinions. Like for the guys, they probably do not care, but you know, I think it's just like the basic stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's what I try to do too. I like to start everybody off with toiletries for sure. And keep in mind, like these travel nurses are packing up their whole lives and they're not trying to haul around everything. So from a host perspective, you need to make sure that they can at least start off with, if there is a washer and dryer in there, make sure you start them off with some Tide Pods at least. Make
Yeah.
sure you start them off with at least 2 rolls of toilet paper. Make sure you start them off with at least 1 roll of paper towels. Make sure that they have washcloths and towels for sure.
So
Kind of interesting. I had, and I also, you know, silverware and pots and pans and all that. But I had one traveler, I think it was like a year ago, she got upset with me because I didn't have a crock pot and an air fryer. And I was like, look, not everybody cooks, and those are more expensive appliances. So I definitely don't, you know, supply those for all 30 of my units. So I just think that, yeah, go ahead.
you know what I did? When I was renting from you, I wanted a crock pot. I don't travel with that. I actually do travel with my air fryer, but I don't expect that from people. The air fryer is just like great thing to have. But I wanted a crock pot while I was there. I don't know why. I was like trying to make something. I got on Facebook Marketplace and I bought one from somebody for $5.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like down the street, and I left it at your place. So now that place has one, but
so that place still has one because we still rent from there. So that's awesome.
$5 crock pot works great. It's not dirty or anything, you know, like there are ways to go around that. But no, I don't think it's expected for you guys to have like a crock pot and air fryer. Those are like extras.
Yeah, I thought it was a little weird or aggressive that she wanted both a crock pot and an air fryer. She didn't end up getting it, for the record, but it is what it is. Yeah. At least I didn't provide it. Maybe she bought one, but hey, that was on her own dime. So, Shelby, what would you say overall pros and cons, travel nursing and versus just staying in the city that you're at? What would you say, like pros and cons to both?
There's so much. Pros to being a traveler, as opposed to being a staff somewhere. It's the freedom, really, about going anywhere that you want, where you choose, because you ultimately choose where you want to go. Like the contracts are available, and your agency tells you, "Hey, this is what I have," and you can say yes or no. Like I said, you tell me you've got somewhere in Flint, Michigan, I'm gonna say no, right? So it's that freedom is nice to be able to just go places. I am like a travel person by heart. I love to travel. I go on vacations even while I'm on assignments, and people are like, "Why are you going on vacations? You're on vacation, right?" Like, it's all the same to me, but it's nice to be able to explore new cities, meet new people. I have friends across the country now, that I can go and visit them anytime, anywhere, and vice versa. Like, the networking is like insane.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to have that ability to go. I can go, you know, to Denver tomorrow if I wanted to, whatever. So there's that. And then obviously there's the money. Like I said, it's not as good as it used to be. It's better than being staff. And as far as that, if you're a staff, you don't get to have as much PTO as we do. I mean, I took off a month before I came to California just because, you know, it's not that I couldn't find a job. I just didn't want to go back to work yet. So I took some time off, and I have that ability. As a staff, you don't have that ability. I mean, you work hard and then you save up your PTO, and then you've got a request to take off, and that may get denied. I'm not messing with all that anymore. It's nice to not have to do that. So yeah, there's the money aspect of it. And then as like staff, you're dealing with a bunch of like hospital politics. The traveler, you're there for 13 weeks. and you don't have to stay. You almost always have the ability to stay if you want to stay longer. The hospitals are almost always wanting you to stay because they need help. You're there for a reason. But yeah, you don't have to deal with all the nonsense that like permanent staff do. Affect you. You just go into work, do your job, and then you get to go and explore the city after you're done, kind of thing. So there's a lot of pros and cons. I mean, con is it's a chaotic lifestyle. I live out of my car. I have things at home that I wish I had with me now, but you have to make choices. You have to make sacrifices. You can't bring everything. You're away from your family. I'm working on Christmas this year. I'm not going back home. I probably won't be back until February. I mean, the list is endless. I could keep going.
Yeah. No, I understand. Would you say that, are you working with a lot of travel nurses versus staff nurses in pretty much every city that you go to? Or is there just like a whole gang of travel nurses just like yourself from city to city? Or is it more staff versus travel nurses at each hospital?
I would say there's more travelers. My specialty is very specialized. So I work in the pediatric open heart surgery. When I'm not doing open heart surgery, I work in the main OR. In the main OR, there's a lot of travelers usually. Not so much in the open heart unit because it's just very specialized. They don't normally have travelers in that specialty. Like where I'm at now in California, I'm their very first traveler they've ever had. Same thing happened when I was in Kansas City. I was their first traveler. Now on their main OR side, there's a lot of travelers. So Riley, I worked in the cardiac OR, but I also worked on the main side as well. They were all travelers. Like everyone there was a traveler. Made a lot of good friends there because we were all the same, right? We were all in it together kind of thing. But yeah, I would say I've noticed it's been mostly travelers versus staff.
Yeah, which confirms what I even said at the beginning when I was like, yeah, it's only going up like this. Like the demand is just like, I mean, I'm talking to different travel. I'm hanging up and talking to another one just because I have so many move-ins and move-outs due to the amount of units that I have. So
yeah, and it may have a lot to do with like the nurse's specialty. Like I said, mine, my specific specialty is it's really lucrative. There's not a lot of travelers there. But in the main OR side, there's a little bit more, and especially in adults, because I only do pediatrics. In like adult world, there's a ton of travelers, and so that probably has a lot to do with what the actual nurse is doing and where they're working.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, shall we have one last question? So if I'm starting out, it's my first time. I got my first unit. I furnished it and I'm ready to put the listing on Furnish Finder. What is the number one advice? What do I need to do in order to attract my first nurse? Like and you can even say like, let's say you've reached out already to this particular landlord. Yeah. What are some things that I need to say to you to make you feel comfortable so that you can come on board? Because I think a lot of people on this channel, a lot of subscribers, their first time, they're looking to get into it. So what are some things that will make you feel comfortable to finally pull the trigger and pay the money and go through with renting from this particular landlord?
I think for me, it's the communication. I reach out to a lot of landlords, like when I'm looking for a place. A lot of times things go super quick, so I have to jump on it. And so I'm sending out messages. And you can see when people read your messages on there. I don't know if you knew that, but
I did not know that. Wow, now I know. Now I know.
Little check mark in the message thread. You can see that. So I see a lot of that where people read my messages when I'm like, hey, I'm very interested in your place. I mean, and I lay everything out. I'm like, hey, it's just me, no pets. Like all that stuff's taken care of in that message. So there really isn't a whole lot more for you to have to communicate with me about. But I think it's just that. I see that a lot. So for me, a red flag is if you're not going to be responsive, what's going to happen when I get to your place and something goes wrong?
No bueno.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm out here by myself. I don't know anyone here, and you are pretty much the only contact I have.
Right.
So that is something that is important to me. And then, yeah, honestly, I think that's it for me.
Yeah.
That really draws me in and just knows that you're professional and and that I'm willing to work with and live under basically, and sign a 3-month contract with.
Right.
I think that's my most important thing.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from making somebody feel comfortable and finally having them come on board is that, like, if somebody's just getting into this business from a landlord perspective, you're not just a landlord, you are actually a host. And I actually use the word host more than I do landlord, because I think there's a big difference. And from a landlord, okay, it might just be a house and it's a tenant, they're there for a year, they're not furnishing it, and they're just collecting a payment on a monthly basis, whatever. But when you're hosting somebody, you're a lot more cordial. You're courting them. You're saying, hey, what would you need? Like, do you want some water with your meal? That type of stuff. But so I think it's more of a courtship, and I'm hosting, and you're coming to my city. I want you to feel at home. I know you're miles and miles away from where you're from, but this is kind of your first initial impression when you're coming to a new city. Like, you're talking to me before you're even seeing your new employees or new colleagues. So I think just kind of keeping that in mind from a host perspective will allow you to flourish in this business, because you need to treat it as such. It is a business. And I think when you treat it that way, you're going to do just fine.
I agree with you. I think that is the biggest difference between furnished finders and Airbnb. Airbnb is for vacation and someone that's coming for a couple days or a week. So it's not about, do they have what they need? It's not about that. As furnished finders, it's directed for travel nurses who are going to be living, not just staying. We're going to be living in your place for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, because we sometimes extend contracts and it can be longer than 3 months. But 3 months is a long time compared to a week when you're staying in an Airbnb. You're living in that space. It's now like someplace that someone's going to be, settling in. My biggest advice would be, if you want to make sure that your place is good, right, is think about what it would be like to stay in the place that you're offering for a week and see how you would live there. Think about it, or do it. Go stay there for 2 days and see how it is and what you're missing. And, oh, well, that would be, I don't have this. Well, then if you don't have that, I don't have that. Right. So that's something I wish that some landlords would, or hosts would think about, is if they had to stay there for a while, what would that look like for them?
Yeah. A fun little hack will be like, every host needs to just stay in their place for at least a week. And so, can you live there for 7 days? If you can't, oh dang, I needed this, I needed that. Well, make sure you go buy that. So when the travel nurse finally arrives, every answer is already, and every question is already answered as far as what needs to be in there. So
every time I've stayed at a place, I have thought about that.
Yeah.
Wish
Did they live here? Did they stay here for a few nights? Yeah.
So they know,
Yeah. So. Yeah. All right, Shelby. Well, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Really cool perspective from a travel nurse perspective versus, the host perspective. So thanks for coming on, Shelby. And I'm glad you guys stuck around this whole time.
Thanks for having me.
And now you see exactly why I got into travel nursing. Yes, it can be passive, but there are some things and items that need to be placed in order for this business to run smoothly. And what better person to hear from but other than straight from a travel nurse? Hey, if you made it this far, be sure to subscribe, and also be sure to follow the link in the description, because I offer one-on-one coaching to help kickstart your travel nurse hosting journey as well. If I can do this, you can too. And this is exactly how you get out of the rat race and level up. I'll see you next week at another video.